part of writing a book is the most creatively fun for you and why?
That's a great question. I think it's actually a tie between um, the title itself and creating memorable moments. So when I came up, for example, with the term the privileged poor, it was me getting in touch both with my sociological side, but also my humanistic side, right? The sociology I wanted to convey a message of this hybrid nature of pushing back against, um, you know, simple descriptions of people. I wanted people to question, like, on what axis of inequality are we speaking? And I had to come up with a clever way to get people to think about it. But I also wanted people to, like, never forget, right? So I played upon an oxymoron, right? It kind of sticks with you. It's like jumbo shrimp, right? So, like, I was able to do both. I was able to create a name that conveyed a message, but also a name that has some resonance, that has something that makes you be like, what's that? I want to learn more. My first book, The Privileged Poor, each chapter begins with an ethnographic vignette, right? It begins with a story that sets the tone for the entire chapter. And so to be able to tie both of those together is what gives me joy as a writer, when I'm able to give people the space and time to honor their stories.
Yeah, I never thought of that, about how much thought you put into a title, but that is something that I'll think about now when thinking about a story's title.
Mhm.
Yeah. So how did it feel for you to share your personal experiences with the world? Do you feel like do you feel like doing what gets other people to share their experiences?
My public engagement started with my permission, but not my full understanding. And what I mean by that is, in 2003, when I graduated from Amherst College, I was on the front page of the New York Times, an article that was called Elite Colleges Open Doors to Poor Youth. When I got a chance again in graduate school to engage with the New York Times in the public outlet, I made it a point, because every time I picked up a book about lower income students, about first generation college students, I felt that the story was always half right. And there was so much missing. And I knew that I wanted to correct that story, not just because we need better information to make better policies, but because I felt like it was a slap in the face. I felt ignored, but yet talked about. It was patronizing in some respects. And so I was like, you know what? I don't mind centering myself, because it was those I statements, right? I feel, I don't see myself, I, that got me to the questions that I asked in my research. It was those moments of realizing that communities in which that look like the ones that I came from, schools that look like the ones both that I attended, were never talked about together. And in doing so, it was limiting our understanding.
What's something that you've learned in the process of being an author? And has there been anything you've come to appreciate about other writing styles?
Yeah, about how jealous I am that people write better than I do. To be honest with you, one of the things that I've learned about writing is there's always a new experience that you are trying to describe that somebody else is going to do just right. So right now in my life, I actually am reading speculative fiction. I am reading children's literature. I am reading scholars whose job it is to create worlds that are otherworldly, right, in outer space and other time dimensions, but also creating worlds within the one that we know. So N.K. Jemisin Nedia Okorafor, Leslie Neka Arema, and Karina Yon Glazer are 4 authors right now whose work I'm in love with. Everything they write, I read. When someone can give me a story of a futuristic world that is actually doesn't feel that far in the future, yet is almost light years away, right? And you have these experiences, like I want to know, how do you do that? Because I have to tell student stories in a way that is not only compelling to make an argument, but convincing to inspire action, right? I just don't want to tell a story about students' experience. I want to convince a dean that they should invest $500,000 in this program. I want to inspire a president to say, you know what? We need to change this policy that has been on the books for the last 100 years.
If there's a specific way that you like to inspire a sense of action through your writing or through your books?
I think you have to realize that different people care about different things. And so I have a 3-pronged attack: heart, hand, and pocket, right? You know, when I tell stories, there are some that are going to pull on your heartstrings, but I'm not going to stop there. I'm also going to make you think about the larger consequences of this person's story. So, for example, when I talk about spring break, I could say simply, many students went hungry during spring break. Okay, people go hungry all the time and people ignore it. What if I tell you a story about a young woman who wore her hair in a pixie haircut, who had a university sweater literally with Columbia University stitched across her chest, right? So you all of a sudden have this image of this blonde, blue-eyed, young white woman repping her university, standing proud at a, you know, when I in my writing, I set the scene, but then the next words that come out of her mouth is saying that during spring break, she uses OkCupid to line up dates so that she can bank on older men paying for the first meal. Because as her university shut down, she was like, well, if I go on 7 dates with 7 men in 7 days, I'll be able at least to eat dinner every night if they pay for it. All of a sudden, like, person who cares about the feelings of students, the experience of students, you pull at their heartstrings, because that's a sad moment, and it is. But then the thinking person is like, oh my God, well, what are the consequences? Like, what kind of image are we having of our school if that's the reality? Like, can we really ask for money from donors if our students are doing this? Can we increase our yield of lower income first generation college students if these kind of stories get out? But then what about the next question, right? If students who are hungry cannot focus on classes and it affects their GPA and progression through school, are we paying more to educate students longer than it would cost to give them food, right? So all of a sudden, I have 3 different people who are responding to the story in the way that I want them to address the problem. Because when you are a good communicator and you have different audiences in mind, you ask the same question in slightly different ways.
There's some great points and like putting it to like real life situations. And that's the end of my questions. So thank you for answering. I learned a lot. I more try to like inform through my writing, and I guess it does like create, like I guess it does motivate like the reader. For me, like writing for me feels like a way to like share what I'm feeling, and like it feels like it's kind of giving me a voice. Like makes me feel like I have a way to share things that I feel, and like in a way kind of like to relax and like be able to feel heard. It just makes me feel like someone else gets to know what I'm thinking, and makes me feel not as like alone in the things that I am thinking about.